This video is going to make a positive case for the virgin birth of Jesus. Now, to many Christians, this may come as a surprise that I even need to make this video because the Bible seems so clear, and it is. But nevertheless, there are those who choose to deny the virgin birth, and they have some very creative interpretations of text. So in this video, I'm going to focus on the positive case and rebutting those responses to the positive case. This is not an attempt to rebut people who try to go elsewhere to come up with some other view, even though the Bible is so clear. Once you have the positive case, the other texts kind of just fall into line and they have clear meaning, but we need to make this positive case first. And so let's begin in the Gospel of Matthew. Now, Matthew begins with Jesus' genealogy. And if we start in verse 1, looking in the 1995 NASB, it says, "The record of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez," and it goes on from there. And so Matthew is laying out the genealogy. Now, if Joseph is the father, what we anticipate when it comes to the time where Joseph and Mary bear Jesus, this would continue forward, and it would simply say, and Joseph was the father of Jesus. But this is not what we find at all. Let's notice what it says. In verse 16, "Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born, who was called the Messiah." Why does Matthew change here instead of just saying Joseph was the father of Jesus, as he had in all of these other genealogies? Why does he now say that Joseph was the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born? Now, who is it saying by whom Jesus was born? Just if there's any doubt, we know it's Mary, and we know it because of the Greek grammar. Let's look at the Greek grammar. Notice the language right here. Ekhes, egenethe, Iesus. That's the feminine pronoun, hes, referring back to Mary, who is also, of course, feminine. So what it is saying is that it is her out of whom Jesus was born. A clear distinction between how everyone else in the genealogy is referred to. Why does Matthew do this? Well, because Matthew is teaching the virgin birth. Now we get to verse 18, and notice what it says here. "Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit." Now, given the virgin birth, and that is generally accepted, this seems pretty easy to understand, right? Before they came together, before they had marital relations, she was bearing the child. But those who deny the clear teaching of the virgin birth say, no, this refers to them coming together and actually being married. So suggesting that Jesus was conceived out of wedlock. That's not what this term here refers to. Here is Bauerdanker, Ardent, and Gingrich, a Greek-English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature, 3rd edition, on sunerchomai, which is the term that is used in Matthew 1:18. Notice how it is glossed. To unite in an intimate relationship, come together in this context. Now, we have Matthew 1:18. Lest there be any doubt, though, let's look at 1 Corinthians 7:5. "Stop depriving one another except by agreement for a time that you may devote yourself to prayer and come together again, lest Satan tempt you because of your lack of self-control." This is clearly in reference to marital relations, and that is the exact sense in Matthew 1:18. So before they came together in an intimate relationship with marital relations, she was already with child. Nothing had happened to cause her to be with child, except the Holy Spirit. Now notice now in verse 19, and Joseph, her husband, being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her, planned to send her away secretly. If Joseph is the biological father of Jesus, and this conception was from premarital relations, what is it that is righteous about Joseph to send her away for what he himself had contributed to causing? That is not very righteous at all. In fact, it is just the opposite. So here again, that cannot be the meaning. So we see in verse 20, the child is not conceived from Joseph, but from someone else. But when he had considered this, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child who has been conceived in her is of, in the Greek, ek, out of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is where the child had come from. Now we get to verse 22. Now all this took place to fulfill what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. Now this is argued to introduce a problem, because in the Hebrew of Isaiah 7:14, where this is quoting from, the Hebrew uses the word Alma. And Alma can refer simply to a young woman without specific reference to virginity. However, there are times where Alma is understood as being a virgin. The Septuagint translators, that is the people who translated the Hebrew Old Testament into Greek prior to Christ, understood this to mean one who had not had intimate relationship with another. And we know this because they use the Greek term Parthenos. And in fact, Alma is not only translated as Parthenos here, it's also translated so in Genesis, where it is also understood that the person involved had not had intimate relationships with someone else. Let's see it. Genesis 24:43. Behold, I am standing by the spring, and may it be that the maiden who comes out to draw, and to whom I say, please let me drink a little water from your jar. Now we'll notice in the Septuagint, in the Greek, it uses Parthenos, as we see right here. The Hebrew, of course, is Alma. Now, if we want to go way back in time, hundreds and hundreds of years before the time of Jesus, yes, the meaning of Parthenos did overlap more with Alma. So, and we see this here in Homer, generally of young woman of marriageable age with or without focus on virginity. However, that meaning, as words change over time, evolved, and in our literature, one who was never engaged in sexual intercourse, virgin, chaste person. And so the meaning, there was only one meaning in the time of the New Testament, because that is the era that we're looking at. The time in and around it, so we go a bit before and a bit after, Parthenos had only one meaning, and that is the meaning that is here utilized. And finally, Matthew 1:25. And knew her not, found the King James Version, till she had brought forth her firstborn son. It does not say knew her not again. It says knew her not. They had never had intimate relations. Again, looking at Bauer, Danker, Ardent, and Gingrich, here is the gloss for the text in question. Right there, Matthew 1:25. Now last, let's look at Luke 3:23. When he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph. Why does it say as was supposed, and what does that mean? Well, let's look at another example of this same Greek word. Acts 21:29, and they supposed that Paul had brought him into the temple. Paul hadn't brought him into the temple. They thought it by mistake. People thought Joseph was the biological father of Jesus by mistake, because that is what was commonly held. But Jesus was born of a virgin.